Hi there, this is Jim the Keys Bartender coming to you from beautiful Key Largo. This is not my bar, this is just the screen that I'm using right here. But I am by very small steps making strides on how to present the show. If you're new to the show, we talk about Keys life, bartending, and how everything intersects in between. That's life. And I guess as a bartender, I have not a unique perspective. I have a perspective I can present to you. I'm going to tell you a little about myself. I'm originally from Philadelphia. I had many different jobs. I'm not going to go over those jobs because I'm a bartender now. It doesn't really matter. The thing that most defines me is that for years I was a very, very heavy drinker. And about, gosh, it must have been about 15, 16 years ago when I came down here, within about 4 months, it got a bit much. And when I was seeking help, I was attempting to get a an appointment with a psychologist. And when I was calling in, the receptionist told me that would be about 2 weeks. And I said, "What am I supposed to do till then?" And the receptionist said to me, "What's your problem? Are you drinking too much?" I don't know if she said it or I mentioned it, but she said, "Well, did you ever consider going to AA?" And this is a sensitive topic because one of the traditions of AA, tradition number 11, is to remain anonymous in radio, television, and the press. And this is the internet, and it does, I mean, it is part of the spirit of that thing, not to maintain anonymity. But I chose not to do that due to the fact that of the field I'm working in. And I was working as a bartender, and I have remained working as a bartender since then. I was sober for 7 years, then I went out for 5 years, and now, as of this December, I am going to be on December 19th, 3 years sober. That does not define me 100%. The only reason a lot of times I tell people right away is so I can avoid that awkward situation where I have people asking me to have a drink with them, buy me a drink when I'm out, asking me all sorts of questions. And I think it's my duty to tell people sometimes because every so often I may come in contact with someone that's trying to, be sober. Now, that being said, I wanted people to know I'm not against drinking. I'm not for a prohibition on drinking. Obviously, it's my livelihood right now. I just think there's an alternative for some people, and it's only an issue for people that realize it's an issue or come to realize it's an issue. And that's a unique way of explaining it, maybe, because you can look at someone who you may consider to have a serious drinking problem, but unless they consider they have a drinking problem, it really doesn't matter what you think. Because the first thing they tell you in the programming with is acceptance. And that's when they introduce themselves. Something like this: "My name's Jim and I'm an alcoholic." So that being said, I've accepted that. And I've also accepted that many people or most people don't have a problem with alcohol. And because this is my field and I'm a bartender, I continue to do the show. Some people might consider that sort of a hypocrisy, but I don't think so. I think the liquor companies do it when they do their advertisements, right? They say, "Please drink responsibly." Right? It's kind of a catch-all term. Please drink responsibly. Don't drink and drive. Don't do this. Don't drink too much too. Yeah. And I say the same thing. I said, you drink responsibly. And there are people probably that I serve that aren't drinking responsibly. And all my duty is to keep an eye on it, that they're not doing anything to harm themselves, going out today doing anything. They could be harming themselves by their lifestyle. But there's not much I could do about that, because if I restrict someone from serving, and I do that every so often, restrict serving more, I don't stop them, because they'll go out and they can drink to my resentment. That's not up to me. The resentment that I cut them off. But it is my duty to make sure that they don't go out and harm themselves and someone else. And I've accepted that most people can enjoy themselves and go out and have a good time by imbibing. And so that's a long hand. I wanted to tell people that. I don't know if this is going to make it to a wide release. I just think it's important that I tell people so they can, they know. And there is a place for you if you are having difficulties, if you feel that you're having too much uh, dependence on alcohol, and that it disturbs your life and the lives of others. It's interrupting your job, your relationship with your family. It's interrupting. It's a nice way to say things like that. So anytime I kind of bring my perspective as a recovering alcoholic to the way I treat people that have difficulties. And it could be a temporary difficult today with them over imbibing, or it could be a repeated one. But I just, every so often, when I get to drive someone home after they had a little too much to drink, and I'll let them know, if they don't know, that they don't have to do this forever, meaning they don't have to continue this lifestyle, that there is a place for them. And I'm not suggesting that AA is the only solution for them. Other people have gotten sober doing other things. Other people have walked away from alcohol. Some have gone to different types of rehab, different types of programs. They've taken medication. But for the longevity of the program, it started in the 1930s. I believe AA is probably the best solution for most people. And it could be a big turnoff for people and things like that, but you just have to check it out. And I need to tell people that before I continue talking about drinks. And I will consider, when I'm giving other drink recipes, that there are people listening to the show that have a problem, and there are people that are in recovery, and they're all there's alternatives right now. There's great alternatives in uh, beer. You have 0.0 beers. I'm a big believer in 0.0 beers. I don't necessarily believe that if you get 1/10 the alcohol, because sometimes there's the trigger. Alcohol has a trigger. You have a certain amount. It could hit you and cause a reaction to make you crave more. And everyone's different the way they view alcohol, meaning some people view it as just a couple things, a couple drinks at the end of the day to just relieve some stress, the way you can blow off some steam, socialize with people. Other people rely on it as more of a crutch. But that's pretty much what I'm going to say about that today. And I'm going to probably check to see if I can do some. I learned something new today, and it has nothing to do with alcohol. I've been studying how to edit video and audio. For the longest time, I've been doing this podcast audio only, with very little, I have to say, that curve where you go up and you learn over time. Mine was more flat with some jumps in it. But today I had a steady learning curve, and I learned how to put together audio and video and opening credits. Yes, after 6 years, I sat patiently looking. The interesting thing about technology is you might hear people say this is user friendly, and if you had my experience that I had with technology, I think that there's very few items that are user friendly, very few items. But once that the scales fall from your eyes, that's kind of like a biblical term. But once you see what you can actually do about just clicking and moving a file into a sequence with video and audio and being able to cut it, I just felt kind of not, what would you call it? Oh, I don't even know what to say. I don't want to call myself an idiot or stupid, but as a, I was a neophyte for such a long time. I was such a, it's amazing that I could do this and think about how long I struggled to do this without taking time just to concentrate. I'm a procrastinator when it comes to technology. If I'm not really familiar with a subject, if I'm not really familiar with a subject, sometimes I'll just procrastinate even more and I'll just produce it and just leave it messy. And I realize that's not really a great thing to do with mass consumption. I have to I have to become more particular on the quality that I put out there. I do have probably difficulty with presentation because growing up I had a speech impediment. I still might have some of it right now. I think I reduced the ums, ahs, and ers, but and then the stammering. But I realized that after doing this over 700 times now with the video, this is relatively new to me. I got to know to look directly at the camera because I am talking to you. And I want to be heard and I want to appear as if I'm talking to you. And there's a lot of people out there, they've learned how to, when I talk about my podcast, they have no idea what it is. And that's one of the problems with people. Like, obviously, if you're younger, you probably say, this guy doesn't know exactly what he's doing. He's kind of a amateurish, a little rough, and I can produce a better video than he can. And you probably can. But with uh, older folks, my age and older, it is a new technology. And they just, with smart TVs, I'm going to point out to the TV right now and the computer and your phone, you have the opportunity to look at a YouTube video. You have an opportunity to look at a YouTube video, and there's the option right here for anybody. Once you figure out how to use that YouTube video, there are resources online to show you how to do these things so you don't have to feel uncomfortable. And there's some people out there are so uncomfortable just thinking, I try to describe them what a podcast is. They do not know that it's, there was a show called Silicon Valley, and one of the characters was a, a just over the top billionaire, the way he behaved. And when I say billionaire, he just was worth a little over $1 billion, but he was famous for putting radio on the internet. And he kept on repeating, it's radio on the internet. And it is radio on the internet. The nice thing about it is you don't need a broadcast license, and that you can pretty much, you don't need to know anybody really. All you need is a little equipment, very affordable equipment. In order to broadcast, you used to have a license that was against the law. There were FCC, the Federal Communications Commission, I think it's called, that you had to have license for a bandwidth and all that stuff. But nowadays, anybody can broadcast. And obviously, by the quality of it, you're going to see that people have different levels of skill on how they produce those things. And I came along that you've seen the first video of my first show. you'll say, wow, that was rough. Yeah, I wanted to do it because I know when I don't do something right away, I have a tendency to procrastinate and not do it and be uncomfortable doing it. So I know, like, when I first, for the longest time until I was 12 or 13, I did not know how to dive into head first. I didn't know how to dive head first. And one day at my aunt and uncle's campground, where I was staying with them and working part time, I spent 3 hours learning how to dive in their pool by myself because I was embarrassed about it. I was a tall, gawky kid and not knowing how to dive headfirst into a pool. And I taught myself how to dive headfirst. And that was an accomplishment for me. It was something to be reluctant. I wasn't always, I mean, I could jump off a high dive and all these things, but I was always doing it feet first. I wanted to be cool and dive in head first. And me doing the video, that first video was me diving in head first. Some people may say that's unprofessional, but that is the way I get the impetus or the motivation to go ahead and move forward. And today I spent about 2, 3 hours working on the film editing of a video. I called it film. I called it, it's video editing. I'm working on the logo and then the overlay of my music for the show and then put it in the back. Now I'm able to do that. And I reposted the show with that. On the first show, I was talking about how difficult it was to get a Christmas tree. And I wanted to say in the show that there's not a lot of pine trees down here in South Florida, but I kept on saying palm trees, palm trees. And people, after my admission about being an alcoholic, may say, Jim, were you drinking? Nope. That is the way I think sometimes. I have those things where some people may call them Freudian slips, where I may say something and it'll just replace that word. And a lot of times people say, Jim, you use very, and I was going to say, very exceptionally long words or difficult words sometimes. That is the word my brain comes up. I would rather be more of a thesaurus and use a common word because it's a better descriptor for an idea than me taking a word that I can only reach at that time and using it in a sentence and say, instead of skillfully using a word, I might say, I use the language with alacrity. And it's not because I couldn't find the word skillfully to skillfully speak. And I would choose the word alacrity, not to be impressive. It's just the way I do things. So this particular video here gives you more of a description of who I am, and how I do things. And it's not going to be inside our episode count. It's more of a descriptor of who I am. And who I am is an imperfect being, like everyone else. And that's okay. That's okay with me. I like to share the things I have. Realize a lot of people don't have the opportunity to live down here in the Keys. I do. I've been doing this. I don't know if I'm providing a value to the listeners, but I know when I have the opportunity to be reflective of the things that I want to tell you, I can be more balanced in my own life, and I can think about the things that I'm doing. So as I wrap this up, this thing that tells you a little about yourself, because I'm probably going to be doing this for, as well, I can't say a couple of years because I don't know who knows what the future will bring, right? There's no guarantee for any of us. But I hope to be doing this a long time. I hope to be presenting better quality, more things. I have another show in the works. It's called Conch Chatter. I'm thinking about doing that as more of a talk show variety aspect, but I need more resources to be able to do that. I need to have more cameras. I'd have to have more production people. At this point, I'm the production department. I'm the creator. I'm the on-air talent. During COVID, prior to COVID, if you listen to the podcast, you'll know that I had shared host duties with other people. And the only difficulty was that is I couldn't guarantee that the people were there, and I couldn't demand people to be there. It would be wrong of me to do it. So I had to do this on myself, and I had to have the continuity to do it. So someday I might be able to do this. Whether it's worthwhile or not, it's worthwhile to me. And I know there's things that every so often in company might be valuable to you, but I'm hoping it might be. So this is me, Jim, the Keys bartender. Not, I say the Keys bartender, but I don't mean as the big the, as the greatest. It's more of a Keys bartender. But I'm the Keys bartender if you're talking about this podcast and video cast or whatever you want to call it now, or vlog. And I'm hoping that I can't believe I went on 20 minutes right here. I do apologize for that. I know I'm taking up your time. I will be back again. And hopefully I'll be able to edit this a lot better than I did the first one. Thank you. Goodbye.